This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you, Amy. So good evening, everybody. Thank you to our commission meeting. We'll get things started with the land acknowledgement.
I think first we have the roll call vote or roll call attendance.
You're right. Thank you, Amy.
No problem.
All right, we can get roll call started.
Okay. Chair Cancino,
Present.
present. Vice Chair Junio,
Present.
Commissioner Flores. Commissioner Flores. I'll circle back. Commissioner Hobson Cord,
Present.
Commissioner Perez,
Present.
Commissioner Sanders.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores, are you here?
Present.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate that. All right, and then I think now we can do the land acknowledgement.
Okay.
Vice Chair Junio.
Okay. The land acknowledgement. We want to acknowledge that we gather in San Mateo County on the traditional land of the Ohlone peoples, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. We honor and respect the Ohlone people's long history here that reaches beyond European colonization. We honor and respect the indigenous people who lived and continue to live upon this territory and whose practices and spiritualities are tied to the land and its other inhabitants today.
Thank you, Vice Chair Junio. Appreciate that.
Welcome.
Perfect. All right, next on the agenda, I think we have the agenda review. I did want to make one change to this, and I wanted to move up a presentation from Commissioner Flores on the guiding language. I wanted to move that up to before recess. No, I'm sorry. Before right after, I believe Park and Rec are also going to do a presentation. I wanted to move that for the presentation by Commissioner Flores to happen after that. So we are going to make that change. Perfect. Okay, so next line item, maybe.
I think next is public comment. Members of the public are invited. Actually, I can share this so people can read as well. Members of the public are invited to virtually raise their hands to join the queue to speak. One person at a time will be unmuted and invited to speak, then will be muted again. To virtually raise your hand, if you're in the meeting via the Zoom platform or application, click the raise hand button at the bottom right of the window. If you're in the meeting exclusively by phone, you can dial *9 to virtually raise your hand. I am looking for any raised hands. I do not see any raised hands at this time.
And any correspondence, emailed or written?
No correspondence before the email for public comment.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's move on to the next line item then on the agenda. Looks like we're at approval of meeting minutes from July 18th, 2022. Amy?
Yes, that's right. If people would like to approve the meeting minutes, it could be taken with a vote and a second.
Perfect. So any motions to approve the meeting minutes from July 18th? For July 18th? Can I get a motion?
I move to approve.
Thank you,
I
Commissioner.
second that.
Sanders. Thank you, Commissioner Hobson Cord. Roll call.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Commissioner Flores, Vice Chair Acuña,
Aye.
Chair Cancino,
Aye.
Commissioner Hobson Cord,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you. Definitely getting through this. This is great. So now we can move on to the next agenda item, which is presentation from our South San Francisco Police Chief Scott Campbell. Amy, do we have an introduction for him?
Sorry, I did not prepare an introduction, but there's lots of topics we have that will intersect with the police department. We'll talk more about this with the work plan. The chief is excited about all these ideas. He wanted to come and just give an overall introduction to the police department and start getting to know you all. So there's 2 presentations from police. And Chief, whenever you're ready, I think take it away.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. A pleasure to see you all again. So I thank you for the opportunity to basically give you an introduction to our police department. I have a ton of information that's going to be coming at you over the next 20 minutes. So if there's anything that you're more interested in or want me to delve into, I'm sure there'll be plenty of time down the road for me to do some research and provide you with additional information. I just felt that it was important for all of you to kind of know what we're all about as a police department and what kind of services we provide the city. So our mission and vision of our department, we are committed to proactively reducing crime, enhancing public safety, and addressing quality of life issues through education, enforcement, and community partnerships in order to make a better South San Francisco. We will maintain the highest ethical standards in all aspects of our duties, and we continually work with the community to develop a relationship built on trust and respect. We will serve the citizens of South San Francisco in the most courteous, efficient, and professional manner possible. That is our mission and vision of all of our personnel here at the police department. What you're looking at now is a picture of our new police building. So thanks to the voters of South San Francisco, we were able to move into our new, much needed state-of-the-art police center and emergency 911 dispatch center earlier this year. If you haven't had an opportunity to come by and visit and get a tour, please reach out, and we'd love to have you here and share this awesome building with you. If I get the next slide, please, Amy. So the police department was established in 1908. We have currently 83 sworn officers and 37 professional staff, which includes part-time employees. We have 3 divisions, operations, services, and investigations. So as a police chief, and I'm not just saying this because I'm the police chief, I believe that you'll come to realize that we represent one of the finest departments in the country. Our standards and expectations remain high. We are committed to maintaining a diverse, highly trained and educated workforce that really mirrors our community. If I get next slide, please. Our patrol division is one of the largest divisions of the department. 40 officers that cover the 11 square miles of the city on a 24-hour basis. These are some statistics from 2020. Our patrol division responded to 61,550 calls for service, wrote 6,939 reports, made 1,588 arrests. And as I mentioned, we have 40 officers. They're spread out over the city in 4 different beats. We have 6 different shifts: a day shift, a swing shift, and a graveyard shift. And our officers are assigned to each beat for about 6 months. That gives them to get to know, get familiar with the communities that they're working in, the neighborhoods, the commercial areas. We don't like having officers assigned to different areas in short periods of time, because then they just don't get that passion or get to know who they're out there serving. So we find that that's very important. And also, I just wanted to make note that unlike a lot of other agencies these days, we do remain a full service department. We will respond to all calls for service. If something is important to one of our community members, it's important to us. We really firmly believe in that. And if you call our emergency or non-emergency line, you will get a live person. You will not get a recording or be put on hold for 15, 20 minutes until we can answer your call. So we are definitely passionate about community service. If I can get next slide, please, Amy. So we have a very robust canine unit. We have 5 canines assigned to patrol, 1 assigned to our SWAT operations, 1 assigned to a drug task force. And the furry friend on the right there, Rex, he's personally owned by one of our employees. He is trained as a comfort dog. So we use him to reduce anxiety and provide comfort to victims that have dealt with traumatizing experiences. So Rex has been a huge help with that. In addition, our canines each have a number of specialties when they're trained. So one may have expertise in tracking suspects and or missing persons, searching for drugs, apprehension. And most recently, I believe we have one of the only dogs in the county that is certified for firearm detection. So if someone commits a violent crime with a gun, and for example, they run into a field and drop their gun somewhere, we've actually had one of our good dogs be able to go out into that large field and be able to locate that firearm. So it prevents it from getting in the wrong hands, specifically a child, and also gets a gun off the street so we can have a prosecutable case against the individual. Next slide, please, Amy. So our canine unit is also makes a huge impact on the community. They've done hundreds and hundreds of community demonstrations, interactions. The children love the dogs, community loves the dogs. And we find that it's very important to educate the community on what the dogs do, the benefits of the canine program, and it just really helps us to build those relationships with our community. Next slide, please, Amy. Here are some of the statistics from our canine unit from 2020. As you can see, they had 75 person searches, 47 narcotic searches, 32 firearm searches. We do a lot of mutual aid for neighboring agencies, as well as San Francisco occasionally. And it was a COVID year, so they only had 3 demonstrations that year, but usually it's dozens of them. Next slide, please. We also have a traffic division. So in addition to protecting life and property as peace officers and public officers, the traffic unit's duty is to enforce city and state street and traffic regulations and to investigate traffic accidents. For those that aren't aware, traffic issues have always been the primary complaint in our city as well as many other cities. This unit is comprised of not only motorcycle officers, but also parking enforcement officers and police service technicians. This unit also works closely with the city's traffic engineer and other departments in developing ways and means to improve traffic conditions and traffic safety throughout our city. We also have a care program where if citizens notice traffic complaints in their neighborhood, residential neighborhoods, whether it's speeding or stop sign violations, they could reach out to us. We encourage it. We will put a traffic signboard out there to warn people to slow down. And if necessary, we'll follow that up with enforcement. Next slide, please. We also have a neighborhood response team. So the neighborhood response team is a unique unit that was created to build and maintain effective communication between the police department and members of our community. The overriding objective of the NRT is to improve the safety of our neighborhoods and enhance the quality of life for our residents. For example, there may be a resident that's dealing with unsightly, someone may have 15 cars parked on the street that they're working on. Our neighborhood response team can go out there, contact the individuals responsible, and find a solution to address that problem. Nobody wants 15 cars parked on their street with oil leaking from them. So that's one example of things that we do. If we receive information that someone's dealing narcotics near a school, our neighborhood response team has an undercover capacity. They can go out there and do surveillance and find out if there's any merit to the allegation and find the best way to handle and address that problem. They're also specialized in gang enforcement and basically keep a pulse on what's going on, not only within South San Francisco, but throughout the county to make sure that we really stop gang violence and do everything we can to abate that. Next slide, please. We have a criminal investigations bureau, which is basically our detectives. This group is responsible for the investigative follow-up of all case reports generated by patrol and to ensure that all or every report written receives the proper case closure. So if we get a case that's solvable, our investigations division is going to be assigned that case, and they're going to do everything that they can to find a solution to solving that case and provide the victims with the needed outcome. Each of our detectives investigates all types of crimes, but each one also has a specialty, whether it's homicide, robbery, property crime, sexual assault. They each have that specialized training so that they could be the primary to address those types of crimes when they do come up. Next slide, please, Amy. We also have a SWAT team. It's not a full-time SWAT team. It's a regional team. So basically everyone that's on the team is on call, and we are part of a North Central Regional SWAT team, which means we work with Brisbane, Burlingame, Foster City, Hillsborough, San Mateo, San Bruno, and South San Francisco. So if a critical incident happens in any of those cities that's beyond the means of normal patrol operations, then the SWAT team could be activated. It's also part of the team is our crisis negotiation unit, our tactical dispatchers. We also have tactical fire and paramedics that are embedded with the team. And like I mentioned, this entire unit is available 24 hours a day and can provide assistance to any law enforcement agency within San Mateo County. As a former member of the team, I'm proud to report that we've had well over 300 critical incidents that were all resolved without using any deadly force whatsoever. So we've really taken a different approach to how we handle these things. We're not rushing into houses unless it's a hostage rescue type of situation, but it's more about containment and giving the individual the opportunity and means to self-surrender before anything violent happens. The next slide, please, Amy. So we have a training manager that has a pretty big role. The training manager is responsible for hiring all new personnel, police officers and professional staff, as well as ensuring that everyone receives the proper training throughout their careers. A majority of the required training is governed by the California Police Officer Standards and Training Requirements. And additionally, we are an agency that is 100% committed to ensuring that all of our personnel receive extensive training in crisis intervention, which is CIT certification, as well as principal policing, which you'll hear some more about later this evening, de-escalation, implicit bias and racial profiling, use of force, and many, many others. Like I mentioned before, we want a highly educated and highly trained workforce, and that's exactly what we're doing. Next slide, please. A little unique to a lot of departments, we have a planning, business and planning liaison assigned that works closely with our ECD and planning division. They interact with local businesses and are a liaison with other city departments to help strengthen the overall security of the buildings located in our city. For example, I'm sure you've all seen all the new apartment complexes and biotech facilities. popping up everywhere. It's really important that we take a public safety view of how those are being developed and allow the police department to provide the necessary input so that if there is a public safety emergency, that we're able to not only access the building, but provide what we need to do to make sure everyone is safe. And they also are the primary liaison for the Department of Alcohol Beverage Control. We have a number of licenses throughout the city, and that they work hand in hand with ABC to make sure that our businesses remain in compliance with those license requirements. Next slide, please. Our record staff perform numerous duties such as preparation of court packages for the district attorney's office, the data entry for crime and traffic reports, answering phone calls, coming in on the business lines, greeting and assisting the public at the front window, our live scan fingerprint system, as well as fulfilling requests from public record information. Next slide, please. Our communications center dispatches, we have contracts with the city of, or town of Colma, as well as the city of Pacifica. We provide 24-hour answering of all emergency and non-emergency police, fire, and medical calls, including 911 and non-emergency telephone service for the hearing and speech impaired. We have access to more than 140 languages and dialects through AT&T Language Line. And the Communications Center continues to use state-of-the-art technology to provide fast and effective emergency communication services. Next slide, please. Our property and evidence personnel are responsible for logging in, custody, safekeeping, release and destruction of all property and evidence collected, as well as maintaining the records for each of them. Thousands of pieces of evidence are processed each year, and it's imperative that we keep record of every single item. Each crime has a prosecutable time limit based on the statute of limitations. For example, in homicide cases, we as a department are required to keep all pieces of evidence for 100 years. So you can imagine all the thousands of pieces of evidence that we're required to maintain and keep track of. Next slide, please. So our services unit is pretty much the foundation of our community service. We have a community-oriented policing and problem-solving sergeant and corporal. We have 2 school liaison officers, and we have our community outreach team, which was formerly our downtown bike patrol, but we've kind of changed the direction with that. Next slide, please. So our community-oriented policing and problem solving units do a number of things. They act as our public information officer when the news media reaches out to us. They review permits for security at the many events that happen throughout the city. If they get reports of problem businesses or neighbors having disputes, they'll handle those situations in a non-criminal matter, basically trying to get the individuals involved to talk and come to a resolution without making things worse. They host many town hall meetings, the Citizens Academy that we have, the Hispanic Community Academy, as well as our Youth Academy. They do job fairs and things of that nature. Next slide, please. We have 2 school liaison officers. So I'm sure you're all familiar with what's happened. The City Council and School Board recently approved the new MOU, and our 2 school liaison officers have started the new year. It is the full intention of the district and the police department to maintain collaborative efforts to provide a safe and healthy school environment for students, staff, and visitors. And per the MOU, the police department will be reporting out annually to the City Council as well as the school board on statistical data, so they have a pretty good idea of what's happening in the school district throughout the year. Next slide, please. Our community services group also is responsible for our Explorer post. So we have a really robust Explorer post. They learn community service to to help the police department as well as the community. You may have seen them in uniform at many of our community events over the years. The age group is 14 to 20 years old. And it's just basically giving an opportunity for them to learn, train, and participate in a wide variety of law enforcement and community activities. And it's been really successful for us. Many have gone away to college and many have returned to the city or the police department to start careers in law enforcement or dispatch or other professional administrative positions within the department. Next slide, please. Our community outreach team, its mission is to better the quality of life in the downtown area, and that's expanded quite a bit. They work with all who work in, live in, or visit the downtown area by educating and enforcing proper and legal behavior. Next slide, please. One of the main directions that we've gone is they work with a lot of our nonprofit organizations. Instead of finding short-term solutions for a homeless problem, we're really focused on finding long-term solutions. And in doing that, we've partnered with many nonprofits, as you can see, that are listed here. Next slide, please, Amy. We're really proud of, in 2021, our team was responsible for housing, temporary or permanent, for 45 individuals, which is quite a proud number for our city. And we continue to find ways to provide housing and resources to all of our homeless population. So if we do come across an individual right now, there's a lot of RVs parked in and around the city. And we're really trying to find ways for those that are willing to accept the help, job placement, housing, food, whatever they need. We're really taking a different approach, not a criminal approach, but more of a let's help them and get them to the place that they need to be. And like I said, if they're not all are willing to accept our help, but many do, and we're just going to keep driving and keep focused on that because it's definitely made a difference, we feel. So, next slide, please. This department, as I mentioned, super proud of it, but the foundation of this department is built on public outreach, community policing, and just building relationships with the community. We have literally about 30 different programs, more programs than I know of any department our size. We already mentioned the community academies that we provide. They're about 8 to 10 week programs where we invite people or community members to come and learn about the police department, all aspects of it. And it just really helps to get to know each other and to know we don't have all the answers. So it helps us to get into a position where we're able to listen to our community members and adapt to the needs of our city. We also just had a Pops with a Cop. It was our very first time we did that. We had 5 events over the summer, super successful. We partnered with Costco, who donated hundreds of ice cream cones, and I think we gave out most of them. So super successful, a lot of good feedback from the community. Next slide, please. This is just some pictures from our community academy. Next slide, please. Some pictures from our youth academy. Next slide, please. Some more public outreach. So we have a police activities league, which is a group of volunteers that live in the city that help promote the police activities league as well as raise money. So the main thing is to provide uniforms, footballs, soccer balls, whatever our community members need. We're sponsoring teams, and we're actually in the middle of creating a more robust PAL. So we're looking forward to that. Next slide, please. We've also really increased our social media. I believe that it's really important to be as transparent as possible with the community. So for those that don't follow us, SSFPD Facebook, SSFPD on Instagram, and we try to put as much information as we can out there to the public so that they know what we're dealing with as a police department, as well as what community events we're hosting. Next slide, please. I also worked with Amy here. We launched a transparency portal on our website. It's still in the works right now. You could see all of our policies and procedures. You could see our 21st century leadership page, which basically shows what we're doing, the best practices for modern day policing and to build public trust. And we're in the middle of launching our statistics with our community wellness and mental health clinician. So that'll be coming up probably in the next few weeks. And we will be reporting to DOJ on a Racial Identity Profiling Act. It's also called RIPA. And that's basically gathering data of all the traffic stops that our officers are making, arrests and things of that nature, so that we could really look into who we're stopping, why we're stopping individuals, and what those results of that data will show. That will be on our transparency portal also, hopefully within a few weeks. Next slide, please. The city's super proud of this program, Community Wellness and Crisis Response Team. It was one of the primary strategic goals of the South San Francisco Commission on Racial and Social Equity. So we partnered, it's a 2-year pilot program. We partnered with the San Mateo County Behavioral Health and Recovery Services, as well as the nonprofit Star Vista, our department, the Daly City Police Department, Redwood City Police Department, and San Mateo Police Department. We're about 8 months into the program. We've also partnered with the Gardner Center at Stanford, who's actively collecting data from all of these cities. And I believe their first report will be coming out sometime in September. I'm sure that'll be shared with you at a later time. We welcomed our clinician, Mika, who's been embedded with our police department. So she will respond to calls that may involve someone in crisis, and will help the police department to find a resolution for the individual to get them the help that they need. Next slide. That concludes my part of the presentation. I know it was a ton of information. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I just wanted to kind of give you the framework of what we're all about, and lots more information to share, but that was just kind of like a sneak peek snapshot of what we're all about. And with that, I will turn it back to Amy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Chair, would you like to do the next agenda item?
Yeah, well, first off, Chief Campbell, thank you so much for being here and putting together that presentation. Definitely appreciate you giving us a nice little snapshot of what you guys are doing to provide services to the community. I think it's definitely admirable of all the things you guys are doing. I didn't know that myself, a lot of the programs that you guys got going on. So definitely appreciate that. As far as follow-up, if we have any questions or anything like that, would it be good to contact you directly?
So at the end of Sergeant Murphy's presentation, I believe there will be some time to ask some questions. If it's something that you want me to really look into and provide, if the conversation is going to be more than a couple minutes, then I guess you could either reach out to me or to Amy, and Amy will provide that venue to report back.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Chief Campbell. Just in case people do have questions that might take a few minutes, I definitely want that option to be out there. But yeah, again, thank you so much for your presentation. And we could go on to the next one then, which would be a presentation from Sergeant Famita Murphy.
Yes, hi. Thank you for having me. Hello to everyone this evening. A quick introduction about myself. My name is Sergeant Famita Murphy. I born and raised South City, graduated El Camino High School, so very much invested interest in the city. Currently, I am the traffic sergeant. Chief Campbell spoke about traffic. It is a very important aspect of the community and a big part of it. But on top of also doing that, I also train our officers on principled policing, and that's what I'm here to present on. And I'm only just doing a quick module on it, on historical and generational effects of policing. And so before I get into all of that, I just kind of want to give a brief overview on what principal policing is. I'm going to go over some terms about what we talk about within the training with the officers, and eventually get to the point of the objective of the training. The historical and generational effects of policing is an important component to the training because it gives us an opportunity to delve into the understanding of why police lack trust or legitimacy in certain communities. And that's really important for us to be able to do our job, is to understand the community members that we're serving. And a lot of times things escalate or get out of control where there's just not understanding on our side and or the other, but it's just, we can only control what we do when we're going out there. We want to be able to understand the community the best we know how and approach our job in a positive, proficient way. So Amy, if you can start the slideshow, that'd be great. Okay, so this module is typically pretty in-depth about a lot of examples of historical effects on policing. I'm just going to go through a few of them. So if we go to the next slide, please. All right, so some questions that kind of get the information or the brain juices going for our officers when we're doing these trainings. What role does history of policing play in how the community views police legitimacy, and does the history of police with communities of low trust affect relations today? Before we really get into or delve into a discussion about that, we try and define what legitimacy means. And it can mean different things to different people, but ultimately what we come up with as a group is something similar to the public view of the police as entitled to exercise authority in order to maintain social order, manage conflicts, and solve problems in the community. Part of that process is procedural justice, and this is how we go about doing our job. And so when one thinks of justice, we think of fairness. And as police officers, we are tasked with upholding the laws and working within the justice system. And how we go about that is very important. So ultimately, we define procedural justice as the procedures used by police officers and other justice system actors where citizens are treated fairly and with proper respect as human beings. Procedural justice, we focus on 4 tenets within procedural justice, which is voice, neutrality, respectful treatment, and trustworthiness. When we talk about these 4 things, and I'll get a little bit more into it throughout the presentation, but we want to be able to give people a voice, let them be heard. We want them to feel that they're being treated fairly, respectful, and then ultimately trust in your law enforcement to be able to dole their job out and do it in the right way. And that's just takes time. So going back to these 2 questions, does the history of police with communities of low trust affect relations today? What role does the history of policing play in how the community views police legitimacy? Absolutely. The history is very impactful, and this is where a lot of lack of trust or issues that come within communities come from, and where we need to understand it before we can go forward with trying to help solve problems within the community. So next slide, please. Okay, so how do we get here? Throughout the world, and not just in the US, and especially even in modern times, where police are sometimes seen as the enemy of the people. They're not to be trusted. They're part of the establishment of the government that's, holding them down in a sense of like not allowing them to succeed, or the goal of police may be to maintain power. When we think of the world and policing and where our community members come from, this is something, again, we need to seek to understand, because everyone comes from different backgrounds, and not understanding that not everything is the same from South San Francisco outside. We work towards training to understand perspective and from where people may generate their own biases or their own fears towards police. Next slide, please. So historical effects, a lot of it happened throughout the civil rights of our country. Police were generally used as the arm of the law to affect a lot of civil rights laws that were in effect at these times. And whether they stood for it or not, but there was a lot going on through our history where police were utilized in that way. We're going to examine the historical and generational effects of policing, and this just provides us an opportunity to better understand the impact of the racialized legacy of policing on present-day policing practice and policies. Our objective with officers is to understand why relationships are strained, and that police or law enforcement has and still is used as a tool of corrupt governments to implement unjust laws here in the US and other countries, which is where the perception is for a lot of our community members, or can be, that this type of thing or police officers are used in that way. Next slide, please. So we're going way back to Jim Crow laws when we talk about historical policing. The police were ordered and expected to uphold, which what the laws were at the time, for about 100 years, segregation. The Jim Crow laws were named after a Black minstrel show character. The laws, which existed for about 100 years from the post-Civil War era until 1968, were meant to marginalize African Americans by denying them the right to vote, hold jobs, get an education or other opportunities. The laws affected almost every aspect of daily life, mandating segregation of schools, parks, libraries, drinking fountains, restrooms, buses, trains, and restaurants. Whites only and colored signs were constant reminders of the enforced racial order that police were expected to uphold. There in itself is already woven into the history of our policing, the distrust of police. And that's within members of our community may still feel and have these feelings towards police officers. And that's throughout generational experiences. Next slide, please. Another example, Rosa Parks, civil rights activist, refused to vacate her seat for a white passenger, leading to her arrest for civil disobedience. Again, the police were the entity to uphold and enforce those laws and continue to affect those type of community members to keep on the generational issues that continue throughout history. Next slide, please. And not only have we had to uphold certain laws, we of course have officers that represent all of us have committed crimes against community members. So for an example, Rampart scandal, if not familiar, this is from the late 90s. In the Los Angeles Police Department, they had a crash unit. They were an anti-gang unit. They were responsible for going out and decreasing crime within violent gang territories. However, it became a situation where the main character, or in this Rampart scandal that kind of was the face of it all, Rafael Perez was an officer who committed numerous felonies within this unit under the call of authority, such as shootings, beatings, planting false evidence, stealing, dealing narcotics, robbery, and perjury, just to name a few. This was also based off of the movie Training Day, and I think several others, where it highlighted the fall of the LAPD within their ranks. There are many examples of police corruption, and this does not help towards social perception of police and trustworthiness and our legitimacy. And although this is not committed by anyone in South San Francisco, it does color all of law enforcement. And so what we feel from LA to here or wherever else in the country, sometimes the world, we're all responsible for at some point, that we have to understand the burden that we bear to always continue to try to show a better law enforcement, trustworthy law enforcement. And we start within our community. Next slide, please. So how do we do this? We invest in a community bank account, and this is the type of training that we try to give our officers is every single contact we have with a community member, or they have with us, it's either going to be a deposit or a withdrawal. We are going to either take this contact and make it a positive one and understand and seek to understand who we're dealing with, what we're dealing with, what they need from us. Or are we going to make this a withdrawal where the person is taking out from the community bank from the police department. They did not trust their experience with us, or they did not find any value to ensure their trust with us. So a lot of times we're looking at each individual contact as something that we can all continue to help each other with. And the perception with police and how they interact, it can then affect the next contact with whether that person or with that police officer. So we ask officers, what's the impact of a withdrawal on you? Like, how are you negatively impacted if a person within the community did not appreciate the way they were treated, or the way that they felt they didn't have a voice, or the way that they seemed they couldn't trust you because you weren't legitimate in the way that you dealt with them through the procedural justice system. And these things have an impact on you as an officer. And the next time you go deal with the person in the public, are you a trusted member of our police department and community? And this is things that we continue to talk about, because each impact or each contact is an opportunity for us to make it a positive one. Next slide, please. So, like I said, every contact is an opportunity, and each contact you have with a community member doesn't only just impact yourself, it also impacts the generational type of impact. So you'll have, if we have a bad interaction with a family, you're not only impacting that one person, you're impacting all their family members. And that just ends up being a slippery slope for police and community members in order to try to build a stronger relationship together. So it's really important for our police department and our police officers to work towards always making a better, stronger relationship within our community. And all our officers take this training. It's mandatory every other year. We want to make sure that the understanding is always there. Sometimes we forget, and a reminder of our role within a community and society is very important for us to upkeep and understand the other side of who we're dealing with and what we're dealing with. That everyone's different, and we just need to understand perceptions and how to go about our job in a procedurally just way. That's pretty much the end of my slides, and I'm sorry I kind of went through it quickly because I wanted to make sure we had time for questions, because I didn't know you have more of your agenda to go through. But if there were any other questions, we can go through them now if you'd like.
Thank you, Sergeant Murphy. Before we go into the questions, I just want to thank you. You're bringing up really difficult topics, and I'm sure all of it has crossed our minds. So even just to be brave enough to put that out there, and definitely appreciate that. Did anybody have any questions?
I have no questions, but I just want to say, Officer Murphy, that I am excited and inspired by your presentation. I love your energy and and all your deliverables, and I look forward to more of that. Thank you for your work for so many of us.
No problem. Thank you.
Any other questions? Amy, it looks like you unmuted.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Sharon, do you think people can ask questions on either of the two presentations?
Yeah, yes. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with my controls there. Yes, I'm sure that would be fine.
Sure, yeah. So if anyone had questions from the first presentation too, please feel free.
I do.
Commissioner Flores, go ahead.
Chief Campbell, thank you for your presentation. I have a question on your last slide, the Community Wellness and Crisis Response Team. You had mentioned on it your partnership with the Gardner Center, and I wish for a little bit more clarification around that, being that I was unfamiliar with the Gardner Center, so I conducted a bit of due diligence and read a little bit about them online and found that they are really focused on youth. I did not see anything related to adults. So could you please give me some insight into that, please? Because I do know that the entirety of South City is looking to the Gardner Center to, quote, gather statistics and provide them with no real clear evaluation or reason or purpose. And now that I know that the center is focused really on youth, I just would like to know how is that relevant to adults?
Absolutely. So it's my understanding they're the experts in data collection and research. So they're taking really a global approach or a global view of San Mateo County, the four largest cities in the county, the data that we're providing. And we're looking at all aspects of community wellness. Are there certain segments of our community that are more impacted by community wellness, whether it's youth, whether it's adults, whether it's people that are housed versus homeless, how many cases turn to violence, how many cases involve criminal activity. So we're really looking at a number of data points, and I don't know exactly what their first report is going to show, but like I mentioned, I'm certain that report will be shared with yourselves.
I think the question that we had, Chief Campbell, is the data going to include adults? I think that's like, might be one of our concerns is we want to make sure we actually have data based on, the adult interactions or adult data as well, not just youth.
Yes, 100%. It's going to take data from all those four cities and give us a report back on it to include youth and adults.
Okay. And do you know if the data is going to be divided up between cities? I mean, I'm assuming that, but I think it might be good to ask that question regardless. Are they going to show us just South San Francisco's data versus a combination of all the four cities?
Yeah, I think both are important. I like to see, because I think each city is different, right? So we want to see what's happening in the city of South San Francisco. So they're going to be reporting out. There's going to be data portals from each city that shows each city's data, and then they're probably going to combine it all together and see if it's more of a look at a larger vision of what's actually happening out there.
And
I have another question. So it sounds to me like your data, you're collecting prospective data, and I'm wondering how they compare with the retrospective data that already exist, and have those been looked at, and what sort of analytics have been performed on the retrospective data?
Yeah, we're collecting data on a monthly basis here in South San Francisco. I think each of the four cities is collecting similar data. And as I mentioned, that data is being provided to the Gardner Center. And to be honest, I don't know exactly how they're going to break down that data or what the report's going to look like, but it's a 2-year pilot program. We're 7 months into it. And that first report will be available to us sometime in September. And I would imagine if there's certain data points that we don't see or that we'd like to see, we can make recommendations at that time.
You mean next month, as in September this year? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
any other questions, Commissioner Flores?
I'll hold off. Thank you.
Okay. I also had a couple questions, if that's okay. I heard you say something about having a business and planning liaison, but I didn't hear of anything as a psych liaison. And I don't know if that's because you have the crisis response team in lieu of that. But do you guys have a psychiatric liaison who is like an officer, but also, maybe like a licensed MSW or a licensed MFT?
We don't have one embedded with our department. We have our clinician at this point. And like I said, it's pilot early stages. So we're trying to look and see what we can provide. We do have access to San Mateo County PERT team, which is a psychology emergency response team that we can call up at any given time. If we were to have a critical incident, then the PERT team would be able to respond.
Okay. Some other questions that I did have was, does your dispatch staff go through any kind of training or any kind of like in services so they know what what community services are out there. So if it did seem like a call that didn't necessarily need any kind of emergency response or first responder, they know how to kind of like send them, or other resources that may be available in South San Francisco.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very familiar with all the other resources out there, and early stages, but I'm happy to report that crisis intervention training, which is very important to us right now. It's mainly focused for law enforcement, and I've heard they just created a one that would apply to dispatchers. So the dispatchers that are taking those calls and actually having direct communication with those in crisis are able to speak to them in the proper way and provide the responding officers with the information that they would need to best come to a resolution.
Perfect. And then my last question, if that's okay. What do the school liaison officers do? And are they stationed at the schools? And then I was curious on the data of the schools that showed that we needed school liaison officers.
Sure. So we've had a school liaison program for more than a couple decades, many years. It's been a very successful program. A lot of it has to do with going into the elementary school, middle schools, and high schools to provide training on drug abuse, on gang awareness, on bullying, just creating those important relationships between the police officers and the youth of our city. The data that's going to be collected is the interactions, what type of interactions are happening, are there any arrests being made on campus, what type of diversion opportunities there are. Instead of creating criminal situations, maybe it could be resolved with a suspension or something of that nature, but really just taking a different view on how we handle our youth and reporting back every year on the data that we're able to collect.
So if there's a crisis that's happening at school, let's say you have like an out of control child that's like running around school, the school would know to contact the school liaison versus calling 911. I just wanted to get clarification.
Yeah, so
on
I'm
that.
sorry. Our school liaisons aren't, they rotate to each campus, or not specifically assigned to a particular campus. Then they're not there all day long throughout the school day. So yeah, if we get a call, any call where an officer is going to be going to the school, if the school liaison officers are available, they'll be the ones to respond. If they're not, if they're tied up with something else, then one of our officers would respond. But as I mentioned, all of our officers are trained on the new MOU with the school district and how to properly respond.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Campbell. Looks like Vice Chair Hunyo, questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Cancino. Good evening, Chief Campbell, Sergeant Murphy. Thank you both. I do appreciate what you both do. Just want to ask a question, and either you, Chief, or Sergeant Murphy could answer about our youth. We keep talking about our youth, and I kind of feel like there's a piece missing, like, because we do have that percentage of troubled youth, and I want to know, like, how much involvement does your department have dealing with our troubled youth? Like, you know, I too went to El Camino, and I remember, and I do believe Baden is still in existence. And I know, from what I remember in high school at El Camino, those who got in trouble were plucked out of our system and ended up at Baden or some other place. And so I'm just curious, you know, how is that handled by the department, our troubled youth?
As I mentioned, it depends what the situation is. We know that our youth make mistakes. We were all youth at some point, and it's just about looking at each situation independently and figuring out how to best find a solution. For example, over the last 3 years now, I think we've arrested two students on campus, which were both violent crimes. Other than that, I mean, I've been doing this for almost 25 years. And I remember the days that you're talking about where the police would be called for absolutely everything, to address truancy, to address kids that are showing up late to school, to address minors in possession of marijuana, a lot of things where the school themselves could be handling that doesn't need police interaction. So that's where we're at right now. We're just trying to look at how we could best do our jobs as it relates to public safety, but also have the school have a little bit more influence on what the result is of some of these things that happen.
Thank you, Chief Campbell.
All right. Any other question? I think Commissioner Flores, I saw you unmute. If you had another question.
I did. Just a quick question, Chief Campbell. You had mentioned that you are collecting data on cases that have already come into date. And I read somewhere that so far Mika has responded to 52 cases. And I'm just wondering if you're also collecting data on cases that have come in but are not being responded to and why they're not being responded to. So I'm quite curious as to data that have really no follow-up.
Yeah, so we respond. Obviously, we're 24/7. So Mika only works 4 or 5 days out of the week. So obviously doesn't capture the 24-hour time cycle. So our officers are still responding to a majority of cases that involve someone in mental health crisis, and we're keeping track. All that data is being collected and will be provided for further review.
Okay, thank you.
I had one more question. Maybe this is more for Sergeant Murphy, but I was looking over the slides a little bit more, and I think there might be something that so with community policing, is there with the presentation that you gave us, it looks like it's this mindset of that, officers need to have about deposit and withdrawal, but is there like training that's happening annually? Is it just training that happens while they're in the academy about learning community policing?
Specific to the principal policing, that is training set forth by post that we do every other year. Yeah, and then there's also other training like crisis intervention training and racial bias policing training and understanding, our interactions with the public. It's always ongoing.
Okay. And then I guess I think a follow-up to that was when there is a critical incident that happens and it's kind of high profile, that includes police, whether it's like a police involved shooting or whatever it is, does the police department come together to kind of go over those cases, what happened, how things could be different? Or is that more of just I don't know how many different stations we have, but what does that look like, I guess?
Sure, so I'll be happy to answer that. So
Thank you.
there are critical incidents that happen not only in South San Francisco, but throughout the entire country. And we are very big on training. We'll take a look at all those cases and we call it debriefing, basically looking at it, seeing how the officers at the time dealt with the situation, what we could have done better or what they could have done better to resolve the situation, either in a nonviolent way or a better way. So that's ongoing. That's daily briefings. That's videos that we push out to all of our personnel to review and talk about. And yes, it's constantly looking at what's happening out there and how we could better do our job so that it doesn't reoccur here in South San Francisco.
So I guess my question is, who sits at that table and reviews that?
Are you asking specifically if it's like a critical incident that we've had here in South San Francisco?
Whether when you guys are doing your debriefing and you guys are coming up with, like ideas or protocols on how to respond to certain things based on, what's happened whether in the public, whether local, state, or national, who's sitting at that table? I'm assuming you, but is there other like city officials that are also there, or is it mainly people within the police department?
it's mainly people within the police department. But if there was a critical incident here in South San Francisco, there would be discussions with the city manager, with all the stakeholders would definitely be talking about it and making sure that that things, if it was a critical incident that could have been prevented, how could we have prevented that from happening? So,
Right.
Yeah, every day in law enforcement is different, and yeah, we don't know what we're going to be dealing with on a given day. So, like I said, it's really important to be aware and follow cases that happen throughout the country, and just do everything we can to ensure that our officers have the proper training in how to respond.
Thank you, Chief Campbell. Thank you, Sergeant Murphy. Any other questions? I think that might be all the questions that we had. Again, thank you so much for answering our questions and putting together a presentation, being here, and just really appreciate that, and really appreciate what you guys are doing to, just keep it moving and always changing, trying to figure out what's the best way to approach. So really appreciate that. I'm
Excuse me,
sure
pardon me. I just
Yeah,
saw Paula
sure.
Claudine unmuted. Paula Claudine,
Oh,
you want to ask a
thank you.
question too?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you to Chief Campbell and Sergeant Murphy for taking the time to spend with us this evening and for your presentation. I went to the National Night Out on the 2nd, and that was the very first time I ever attended that event. And that was a great event. I had the chance to meet Chief Campbell and some other officers, and it's just good to connect with the community and connect with the police department. Also didn't realize all the many services and programs that the police department offers, and I'm very impressed, and I appreciate your presence.
No problem.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
All right.
Amy, I was just gonna offer something, and that is when I first came up to City Hall, I took the police department's police academy training, and I really recommend it. It was really fascinating. It's I think it's 12 weeks. Does that sound right, Sergeant Murphy? Or 10 weeks maybe? A different topic every week, and it's in much more depth. So I'm just, if you have the time, I really recommend that. I found it invaluable, and changed a lot of perceptions that I had. Truly, I had kind of a different perception, and so I recommend it.
How do we get information on that, Sharon?
We'll send it out to you. You have a session coming up in the fall, Chief, of the Police Academy?
Yes, Ashley spoke with Amy recently, and we're actually looking at when it's going to be starting, and a special invitation will definitely be going to all of you.
Cool.
Oh, great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else? Comments, questions? Okay. All right, I think with that, oh, Sergeant Murphy, you unmuted?
No, I was just going to say thank you very much, and appreciate all what you guys do as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Murphy. All right, with that, well, next, again, I think you guys are set to go, but if you wanna, the next line item, Amy, I think is recess. Perfect. So we could take like a short 5-minute break here, and then we'll return for the rest of the agenda. Perfect.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you, Amy. Perfect. Welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody had a good break. Nice to see faces. So next on the agenda, we have a presentation on the Public Arts Master Plan, which I believe is being given by Park and Rec.
Thank you, Chair Cancino. Good evening, commissioners. My name's Erin O'Brien. I am our business manager with the Parks and Recreation Department. And we're really excited to be here tonight for our launching of our public art master plan. And we have joining with us this evening our consultants from Art Builds Community, and I'll have them go ahead and introduce themselves as part of their presentation.
Give me 1 second. Just gonna put this in presentation mode and we will start. Good evening, everyone. We are so excited to be here to present to you. Thank you for having us. We're here to present the South San Francisco Public Art Master Plan project. And I'm going to be sharing a quick 5 slides with room at the end for at the end of our presentation for Q&A. But before I move on, I wanted to really make a point to share these images and discuss them really quickly. Obviously, we're really excited about South San Francisco, the industrial city, and we chose this image to start it off. But I also wanted to include the image to the bottom left, which is something you'll start to see moving forward with our public engagement as we develop this public art master plan with the city. So, something that was developed by our partner who's here with me this evening, Quinn Mai Nguyen, who is taking notes as we move forward. So, to the next slide. My name is Amanda Rawson. I am the project manager for Art Builds Community, a public art planning firm here in San Jose, just south of all of you. And I'm joined here with 2 of my colleagues. I'll go ahead and let them both introduce themselves. Gail, if you'd like to go first really quick, and then I'll let Quinn go.
Sure. Thank you for having us. I'm Gail Goldman. I am a sub-consultant to Art Builds Community. My public art consulting practice focuses on both policy and planning as well as project management. And for this particular project, I will be paying particular attention to the Percent for Art ordinance and the development of policies and guidelines to accompany it.
Thanks, Gail. Quinn?
Hi, everyone. My name is Quinn Mai Nguyen. I am the creative director for Art Builds Community, and for this project, I'll be leading the creative community engagement. I have a little over 10 years of community organizing within the arts and cultural sector, and I will be making a strong effort in ensuring that this public art planning process is as accessible as it can be, especially towards hard to reach communities.
Great, thanks, Quinn. Apologies for the misspelling on that slide. Tonight we're not actually joined by Barbara Goldstein, but you see her here. She is the founder of Art Builds Community and has been working in the public art world for 30 years. So we have really great group of women moving forward with the city to develop this plan. So let's move on to the next slide. Oh, come on. All right. So this is the process. So the project is going to involve these areas that you see on the screen. We will develop a public art master plan that will align with the city's general plan update, both through research and direct communication with stakeholders and city staff. So those stakeholders will be internal stakeholders, so their city staff, as well as stakeholders and throughout the community. The plan will also provide a set of goals, policies, and objectives that will guide the development of the cultural arts programs, as well as the public art inventory. So we'll really bring forward the best practices that are used nationwide and have them be a part of the development of this plan. We have already started to have conversations with community members, workers, and developers to discuss this public art plan and the development of an arts district, a potential arts district in the city. So we're continuing to invite people to these conversations with our team in collaboration with people like Aaron, who has introduced us here this evening. And we encourage you to think about people that we should be including in our conversations as we move forward. We're just at the start of this project. So additionally, we are also focusing on gathering community input through interactive art engagement. You heard Quinn speak really briefly on what she's working on. So these are engagement activities will really encourage excitement and interest in this project. At least that's what we're really hoping. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. So last, of course, we're going to be recreating a public art plan that will include these areas, which is a vision, a mission statement, and then guiding principles. That's where those best practices come in, and as well as recommendations for staff to use moving forward in the next 5 to 10 years to really use as a platform to build partnership and develop the arts in South San Francisco. Next slide. So what we have done already, we have definitely had our visit and toured the city with staff in June. So we really took off and started it in June. We've met, as I said, with internal stakeholders, and there is a public art master plan steering committee, which was the Vision Arts Committee, and we met with them in person last week, but kind of already met a few of them during this event you see here on the bottom left, where we had some community input, what types of art community members would like to see. And not only that, you can't quite see it here because there's somebody blocking it, but there is a map of the city where we want to ask people, where's public art missing? Where are public art programs missing? And where would you like to see them happen? So there's this community engagement, and we'll have art interactive engagement as well. We're also at the very end of developing a survey. So that will be going out be available the end of this week. We've developed it in the collaboration with staff, and it will be available in both English and Spanish. It'll be available online and on paper, and any additional languages necessary that represent the community members in South San Francisco. We have been told that the paper surveys will be available also at the Parks and Recreation satellite sites sometime after this week. You'll also find a link to the survey on the city website as well after this week. And then we have also identified the events where we will be at, which are listed here. We will be at the upcoming movie night in Canto, where community members will have the opportunity to get creative through an interactive art activity before filling out the survey and watching the movie. So we will be there early so we don't interrupt their movie watching. And Quinn has developed a really fun and interactive activity that is kind of plays on the magic of the movie, and I won't go too far just in case people haven't watched it. So we hope some of you, if not all of you, are able to attend that evening. If you can only attend a little bit, it'd be great that you attend at the beginning while we are there. So and then you see here we will be at Concert in the Park on September 24th. It will also have an engagement opportunity, as well as Day of the Dead celebration on October 15th. And the last slide. What's next? So these are the couple of questions we're asking of you to think about, and I don't know if we have time for you to respond to these now. And where would you like to see public art and arts and cultural activities take place in the city? So this is something we're asking the community as well. Where do you like to take visitors when they visit South San Francisco? Are there special places that are really significant to the community members that live, work, and play there? Where do people tend to gather to celebrate special events in South San Francisco? Are there community cultural events that maybe are happening, under our noses that we just don't realize are there? We were visiting, it was the beginning of one of our visits. We happened to stumble upon, just driving by, a South Asian wedding ceremony in the community. And we thought, wow, this is really, that was great to see. So to see culture really happen. So this is the end. We not only our team would like to have you respond to these questions, but if you have any questions for us, more than happy to respond to yours. And just we ask for your support by sharing out to your community members about this project and letting them know that we're at the beginning of the process, and we want to hear feedback from as many people as we possibly can get. So thank you for taking your time and letting us present today at your meeting.
Thank you, Amanda. I think a definitely great presentation. I definitely like the questions. Let me first start with Anybody have any questions? Vice Chair Huno.
Good evening. Thank you, Amanda, for that presentation. Did have a couple of questions for you. You had mentioned, and I think it was in one of the slides, there was or I read, an arts district. Is that an actual place you're looking to kind of establish? Or is it just, yeah, I'll kind of leave it at that. Is that a physical place?
So when we applied to do this project, that was something that was mentioned in the request for proposals, that there was going to be the possible development of an arts district, and conversations were starting on that with the city, within the city. And I'm sure Aaron could respond to that as well. But we have been told that Lyndonville is the designated area in conversation currently. In very beginning stages. I don't want to share too much more, and let Aaron speak on that as staff.
Yeah, I mean, Amanda's correct in that it is something that the city is looking at through our economic and community development, our planning division. They have a team together that is kind of looking at the Lyndonville area, exploring it as an option if that could be a potential area for the arts cultural district. So that is in conversation. Nothing's firmed yet.
Thank you, Aaron and Amanda. That was helpful. And I was just curious, you had mentioned, Amanda, interactive art. Perhaps I've already experienced that somewhere, but if you could give me an example, I would appreciate it.
I can let Quinn speak on that.
Interactive art, we basically, you know how a lot of times when you go to a community event, you see a lot of community tabling with surveys or, paper takeaways or even swag. Well, for Art Builds Community as consultants, we like to use arts-based engagement. And what that means is that oftentimes we will partner or work with and collaborate with an artist, oftentimes local artists, in order to develop an temporary arts-based engagement activity. So to help, help facilitate a conversation, whether they realize it or not. A lot of times when we approach people with the following questions on the screen that you see here, they freeze up. They become anxious, and that's totally understandable, because when are the times when someone comes up to you and asks these very detailed and deep questions about their city? And so by using arts as a basis, as a vehicle for conversation, they often speak on their aspirations, their perspective of the city, and what they really hope for when it comes to development without even realizing it. And through the experiences of tabling with arts-based engagement for other cities, we've gathered so much feedback from the community members this way. For past examples, for the city of Livermore, when we're closing up on their cultural plan this year, but we had collaborated with the Livermore Poet Laureate to help facilitate a community engagement pop-up tour, where she facilitated a very small heart-based poetry activity, guiding youth and even adults, family-oriented as well, into a short poem where they would just fill in the blanks. My heart feels, my heart sees, my dream for Livermore is. And those lines of poems, those lines of poetry are then transcribed into strips of paper, which they are then facilitated and guided into rolling into paper beads. And then they're able to turn them into paper beaded bracelets or necklaces, so that they could wear their heart-based poem and their aspirations for their city and love for their city around them. And from the experiences that we've seen, especially with the youth, they are very connected. It really it becomes this catalyst and triggers this kind of emotional connection that that art can have when it comes to just everyday experiences. And it also adds to this this need for, you know, more family oriented or free arts activities and programming. That was the type of feedback that we have received a lot throughout different cities. And so by providing this, it gives something for families, but also helps us to engage with their parents as well. For the activity in Canto, we're hoping to do an art project where we're asking them, well, the movie is based on the magic of home. And so we're asking them to participate in an art activity that really allows them to paint, or not necessarily paint, but color or draw how they envision the magic of South City. And in hopes that that will inspire themes or, you know, their visions for the city through art or aspirations, or even helping us define the different characteristics of the city. And so I hope that answers your question.
It did, and I understand why you have that title, creative director. Very, those are
Thank
very
you.
creative ideas you shared with us all. So I thank you. That's I appreciate it.
And we'll also have a Spanish translator at the event. We'll have translation.
Oh.
So
Very nice, very nice. Thank you.
you're welcome.
So are you folks consultants to our Cultural Arts Commission? I think that was like a question that I had. Aaron?
So they're through the Park and Recreation Department oversees the Cultural Arts Commission. So they're through our Park and Recreation Department. They're our consultants, but they are working closely with our Cultural Arts Commission. As Amanda had mentioned, the steering committee for this master plan is made up directly of our cultural arts, a few of our cultural arts commissioners.
Cool, perfect. Thank you, Aaron, for that.
They're going to be our liaison between the commission and with staff so that we understand we're going the correct way for the city.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I think, I mean, if I remember correctly, there was lots of plans in place, so definitely good. Well, I mean, you guys got it, but perfect. Thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah. I didn't even know where Lindenville was, so I pulled it up on a map here. Is the vision to have something that's pedestrian or walkable, like an art area where you can actually take folks when they come to visit?
I see Sharon popping up on screen there. I don't know if you want to try to jump in there, Sharon.
You know, it's very preliminary. So I think it's started with the Economic and Community Development Department as sort of a way of not pricing artists out of the city. So like what policies could be put in place that might encourage dance studio, art production. And so it's not so much a physical thing like you would build an arts district as much it would be a set of policies that might encourage creative people not to have to move out of the region. I just got an email today from Barbara Butler, who she was a artist in South City who makes playhouses, very creative playhouses. She just moved she sent me her new address over in the East Bay. And so again, as we know, it's difficult for artists to remain on this side of the bay just because of the price of living. So I don't know if that's helping. It's more of an exploration of what kinds of policies could be put in place to encourage creative things here in South San Francisco. Okay. And who knows where it will go. It could be very exciting, but it would take some time to develop, I think, over time.
I have a question. So I am an avid supporter of the art in any form because I titillate to any form of creativity. But I'm curious as to what is it about your project that has led you to our commission to ask us for comment through an equity lens?
We believe that the arts are for everyone. And we believe that it's important to think about, to approach the arts with an equity lens. So we're curious to hear also, who are the people that you all are connected to that we should know about? And I think that's been a big question for us. The kind of our experience so far is it's been difficult to find those people. Maybe the BIPOC leaders, right? Black, Indigenous, people of color, people who are in areas that are maybe not getting as much, does not have as much accessibility to the arts. Who are they specifically that we should be engaging with? We'd love to get your feedback on that. And as I said at the beginning of the end of the last slide, to please, we want to introduce this to everybody to ask for your support to spread the word to your friends and family and people your baristas, your coffee person in the morning, to engage with this project, because everybody has the right to share their comments on what they'd like to see happen in their city.
Yes, Amanda, I do appreciate what you just said, but I am still rendered quite confused because I think the information you're after could be derived from the survey that you will be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reason I'm confused is that without knowing your overall plan, because in one of your slides, you did say that you intend to quote, provide a set of goals, policies, etc., blah, blah. And without knowing any of that, I have no clarity really as to what you're asking from us other than what you just stated, which I said in turn that I think could be derived from your survey in general. Because we, as far as I understand what we're supposed to be doing, art was not one of them. And we had established 3 areas of focus, now narrowed down to 1. And this is a far, far cry from the priority that has been narrowed down to 1. So I'm happy to support you. I just am not really sure how, other than being a part of your survey pool.
Amanda, maybe I could just jump in here.
Absolutely, Sharon. Thank you.
Okay, so the city has about 12 or 13 different boards and commissions. Obviously, the library board, the planning commission, the cultural arts commission, parks and recreation. So each has their own focus and their own purview. And certainly the Cultural Arts Commission's purview is public art. However, we try to do a lot of cross-pollination. So we thought it was fair to make maybe take 20 minutes of your time to make you all aware that this initiative is happening, and it's going to be as inclusive as we can possibly make it. And should you have heard this presentation and said, well, how are you going to reach out to people who don't speak English? That would be something that would be a red flag for this group. And so we would try to address that. So the idea is by request, if one of the departments feels that there's something that this board or this commission could help with, then we want to create that opportunity. Again, we're not going to make this a major focus of yours or come back to you every week or every month. It's just an awareness that this initiative is happening. I've been very pleased with the inclusiveness of the consultants. So that's it, just very simple. And if the commission has any concerns, like we don't feel you're being inclusive enough, or what about displacement, or what are you going to, then that would be an excellent bit of input, and the consultants could run with that. Because again, it's not all just staff. We can give a lot of input, but we want to hear from the community members and have them aware of what's going on in South San Francisco.
Thank you, Sharon. I think I would be in a much more informed position to respond from an equity lens once I see the content of the survey as a citizen.
And if I could chime in a little bit, I think, you also said, Sharon, just also keeping in mind any policies that we could, think of or put together to make sure that we are protecting our artists because of, like again, the economy and, you know, artists don't get paid very much, and this is the Bay Area. And so I definitely hear you on that. And I think that's something that we could also talk about to make sure that, you know, as a commission, we're also protecting, you know, artists as well. So
Thank you. Absolutely.
I did want to mention, I don't know if anybody has mentioned this or if Amanda, you guys know about this, but San Mateo County, they do have health equity initiatives. I mean, you were talking about diversity, and I feel like that would be a really good place to start. They might have members that live in South San Francisco, but this is like initiatives that's all over San Mateo County. They have one on African American Community Initiative, Chinese Health Initiative, Filipino Mental Health, Latino, Native and Indigenous People, Pacific Islander, Pride, and a Spirituality Initiative. So I feel like you might want to hit up those chairs and see if they have any residents that live in South San Francisco that could help, since they are already leaders in the community. So I would definitely recommend that. Let me see if I could.
That's a great help. Thank you, Crystal.
Yeah, no worries. I can, let me see. I could email you some of the contacts. I have some of them, but let me, I will.
Yeah, if you share those with Erin, she will be able to connect and share it with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have Erin's email already, so I'll definitely share that with Erin. I feel like that's probably a good starting point.
Fantastic. Thank you.
If I could also just add to that, not only are we gathering information from a broad range of residents and business owners, but what we learn will inform the recommendations that we ultimately make. And since public art and the cultural arts are for everyone, we may find that if there are particular issues or priorities, that we can address them through specific recommendations for programming and you know, art making, community-based initiatives, so that it really will come full circle and hopefully address and be accessible to everyone.
Thank you, Gail. Appreciate that. Appreciate your whole team, what you guys are doing. I think if anybody on the commission maybe either wants more information or wants to give more feedback, the Cultural Arts Commission, they are meeting this week. Actually, it's on Thursday at 6:30. So if there's other questions that you might have for our dear friends here, we could also probably loop back into the Cultural Arts Commission, since they're meeting soon.
Feel free to send me an email too, and I can help get anyone set up or connect anyone.
Thank you, Amy. Always willing to help. Any other questions or comments? Looks like Commissioner Sanders.
Yeah, I definitely would like more information and to be connected with activities, ideas, because being a resident here for so long, that's one of the things I really don't have any idea of what South City has to offer as far as art and culture.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And we hope to see you on Friday.
I'll try.
Perfect. Just, I'm only going to take a minute on this. I know we've kind of spent a lot of time, but does anybody want to answer any of these questions that they have on the slide for us? I don't think any of us have answered it. I could definitely answer one of them. The walls of all of our city buildings are pretty empty. I'd like to see some murals up or something. Centennial Trail, somebody, I think it was it Commissioner Sanders that had said something about like a walkway, like what a great opportunity to get some stuff on the trail. And I think there's only one place in South San Francisco really where we have special events, and I think that's Orange Park. But you know, that fence that we got going around Orange Park could probably use some color. So those are some thoughts that I had. I don't know if anybody else wants to put anything out there. I'll give it a minute.
And Chair Cancino, to your point, we can definitely circulate the surveys around to all of you as well. So don't feel like this is your only opportunity. We'll have plenty more time in surveys and other outreach opportunities for you guys to weigh in and give your input. So thank you.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, I'm thinking that Grand Avenue would be a place to tap into as far as, you know, having outdoor art exhibits, maybe more art on Grand, and, you know, maybe close off the streets and have, you know, some sort of a festival or fair, something like that is what I'm seeing.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Sure.
All right. I think,
Okay, I'll go
yeah.
ahead and stop share.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. Art Builds Community, appreciate your team and what you're doing. We'll make sure to follow up.
Thank you,
Thank you, guys.
for giving us space and to have time to present to you all. So we appreciate that.
Perfect. All right. So I think with that, we will go on to the next line item, which I believe is a presentation from Commissioner Flores on guiding language. And perfect. Commissioner Flores?
Yes, so just to be clear, I'm not presenting on guiding language or bylaws. That was a misread. And what I am presenting, well, first of all, I appreciate this opportunity to present to my colleagues. So I am presenting just 3 slides, and they have been distilled from a slide deck of 13. When I'm confused, I tend to create a business plan so that I can see very clearly for myself something that I can grasp. And the reason I'm not presenting so much is what's more important for me is to hear from my colleagues, being that some of us are vocal, some of us are not vocal, and I'm very curious, being a very curious person as to how my other colleagues are thinking. So to that, Amy, could you please put my slides up? Thank you. The first slide is really just a title slide. And I did start this slide deck last month, but I did update it just for tonight. Second slide, please. This is a bird's eye view of who I think we are, what we do, and how we do it. So we are the Commission on Equity and Public Safety. So with respect to my business plan, what I decided that I would start with would be background and rationale, which I understand to be acknowledgement of equity and public safety as necessary to optimize community success. I then followed this up with mission and vision, and I wanted to be very succinct and simple, so I combined the two into equity centricity to improve lives. Then rather than an overarching goal, I decided to create objective and key results, which I call OKRs. And this would be training, education, orientation, team building, work plan development, and then to target a top area of focus with sub areas. Coupling the OKRs with key performance indices is key because I need to understand the relevance, timeliness, utility, and attendance and participation of anything and everything that we do, from concept to operational to evaluation, through formation of subgroups and a plan of action, and then sharing of all of these. And finally, I have methodology and strategy, which I would like to start with data and outcomes review and needs assessment, which is always very important to me because I need to understand with some semblance of clarity, what is it am I after? What is it that's expected of me? What are my deliverables, and to whom, and in what form? And then relationship building with necessary and relevant stakeholders. And this, of course, could be anyone like the citizens at large, it could be institutions of faith, it could be individuals in position of governance leadership, and those in commerce, or anyone who makes up South San Francisco. And for me, the single most important part of the methodology and strategy is evaluation. Without evaluation, to me, I would not understand the value add that we are offering as a commission. I would need to understand things from a qualitative as well as from a quantitative perspective. Slide 3, please. This has led to my to-do list, and this is just suggested. So I want to focus you on the left-hand column, which is the near term. These are tasks, And I also want to focus you on to the legend. Red means TBD, to be determined or not yet done. Yellow is in process and green would be completed already. So let's start with the left-hand column of near term. We have already determined, we have achieved consensus on the selected top area of focus. And according to the guidance of City Manager Mike Futrell and the Mayoral Council, it appears that health law enforcement is our top task here. So rather than having 3 areas, we are now narrowed down to healthy law enforcement, which we can further subdivide into 2-3 sub areas, and there are many more within this law enforcement topic. I would suggest that we have health law enforcement subgroups that would be comprised of 2 commissioners and 1 council person to develop a plan of action with a timeline, to obtain and review relevant data, and finally to create a draft report and recommendations to discuss with the entire commission for finalization and submission. This is yet to be done. Also yet to be done is team building, and I did review some of Amy's attachments, and it did not appear that team building was a priority because it has been put off until next year. For me, it's a very important priority because we do not know each other. Now 6 of us, we all only meet during these meetings. And then when we have these meetings, we really do not get to know each other because we do not hear from everyone. So I think team building is very, very critical. And the one rule that would be overarching governing the team building would be that if you spoke of anything related to the commission, you're not team building. So it's really a social. And I think that anything around a food, which is the greatest single equalizer of all, of anything in the world, I think food has to be good. So we could do a potluck picnic or something that has to do with food and games that are icebreakers, but very critical because then we get to know one another through a safe haven and through non-threatening approaches. I now focus you to the right-hand column, which are the ongoing to-do lists. So in yellow are the orientation, education, training, which we've already begun. We've also begun review and updated administrative guidance documents for relevant value. What we have not yet done, and until we have greater clarity with what is expected of us and timeline, we cannot really build relationships with our identified relevant stakeholders. And these, as I mentioned previously, would be the contracted third-party vendors, people in governance, commerce, faith groups, and citizens at large. So with that, I want to thank you for your attention, and I now yield the floor to my fellow commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Flores. I think we could take like a few questions, but I think if there's going to be other discussions, we can do that after we talk about the work plan, since that might also come into play or might have some kind of effect on each other. But does anybody have any questions for Commissioner Flores?
No question at the moment, but thank you, Dr. Flores or Commissioner Flores for doing that. I did take some notes, and I wholeheartedly concur with you as far as team building, and I'm confident we'll find something that we can do in a very near future as opposed to further down the line. But I will I'll probably wait till the next line item because it might tie into what you discussed just now, Commissioner Flores. So, but thank you. And if a question does pop up in my head, I will be sure to ask you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on having some kind of social. That I think that was something that Vice Chair Junio and myself and Amy had talked about, was even just getting to know each other. We definitely want to be very careful with making sure that we're not violating the Brown Act. But having a social come sooner than later, and then later on for next year, doing a retreat so we can kind of get to know each other even more so on like as like what's it called? On more so as our leadership styles, the way that we work together, which I think would really, really be beneficial. But first and foremost, even just getting to know each other. I mean, we haven't seen each other in person or anything like that. So I think a social could definitely happen soon. I'm totally with you on that, Commissioner Flores, but also want to, just let everybody know about, or maybe this is something we can talk about later, about having a retreat so we can really get to know each other now as leaders and what that looks like as far as working together. Anything else for Commissioner Flores? Sorry for the sound here. Okay, well, so I think with that, we could go on to the next line item, Amy.
Sure, yep, I think it's the work plan item. Okay. Great, okay. So based on our last couple conversations and some discussion with the city manager, we've come up with a direction for a work plan. I hope this work plan helps make a path forward more visible. We do ask you for your patience. There's a lot of trainings. There's another one next month. There's introductory presentations, but hopefully seeing this proposed work plan will help lay out when we can be really diving into things and getting into the meat of it and making impactful recommendations. The recommendation from staff is to focus on policing in the first year for the commission. There's been numerous topics brought up that have to do with policing. I organized into 4 main buckets. So there's a lot of meat to get into, and we might want to look at a topic for more than just one session, bring in experts, have multiple presentations if you all want to do research as well, to really be making impactful recommendations. So the 4 main buckets that I saw are policing and mental health. This would involve having our mental health clinician from the PD come and speak with you all, having SSFPD show you the crisis intervention training, other mental health training that they have. We discussed having the sheriff come. We could look at different programs such as the County SMART Team or the Cahoots program in Oregon. There's a lot we could dive into just on that one subtopic. The next main topic was data on policing, including data on arrests and stops. The chief talked about the Racial Identity Profiling Act, where officers have to record the perceived race and gender of people that they stop. So there's going to be lots of interesting data to look into there. Commissioner Perez talked about wanting to see data on emergency calls, interactions, and demographics. So I think there's a second bucket of data-driven policing best practices that we can all look at, where you all can look at the data and then make recommendations. Policing and juvenile justice and diversion of juveniles from the criminal justice system was recommended by the previous commission. This could be another big bucket to dive into. This could also involve looking at the school liaison officer program. And fourth, I thought you might all be interested in learning more about restorative justice from different experts and see if you'd want to incorporate anything like that into your recommendations. So yeah, would really hope to take a deep dive on each one of these sub areas, have multiple presentations, gather a lot of information to help you all make the most meaningful, impactful recommendations. Some other main functions of the proposed work plan. You may recall the ordinance did have this function for the commission to receive complaints about city personnel, hoping to train on that with HR next meeting. So that's another intended function. Third, I have respond to requests for review from staff as needed. That's kind of where the public art master plan fit into. Just, someone wants to get in touch with community members, and especially with an equity lens. Hopefully this is a place for people to come and get that interaction. Community participation is really important for this commission. We've talked about doing outreach to the community to bring more of them to these meetings, and also going into the community to listen to people on their concerns. So community forums, listening sessions, things like that could be a part of your work for the first year. A retreat was definitely something that the chair wanted to do, as Crystal had mentioned. Spend time community building, expanding knowledge on diversity and inclusion. This is separate from the social. The social on the agenda is for the near term. This retreat, I think, would be a separate event a few months out. And then training. There's still training going on. So I started putting together a sample schedule. This is not a final schedule. This is just kind of to start looking at all the moving pieces and how to approach them. Based on your feedback tonight and based on other coordination, this schedule could change. So you'll see I put for next month, September, there is still that training on labor laws, complaints. If you all would like to, we can do more introductory things with the police, like schedule a visit to the new police department, take a tour of the department. If people are interested, we can do police ride-alongs where you ride with an officer. Those would be staggered throughout the month. And we also started mapping out, starting with some of the training that police officers get in regards to mental health. So CIT training, mental health training. We could also talk about how to police with trauma in mind. So September would really start digging into policing and mental health. You'll see in October, proposed meeting format is to have the mental health clinician come, get a presentation from her, ask her questions, start to make recommendations. I will say that the reason we're not seeing the mental health clinician earlier is we're waiting for some of that data to be ready. The chief asked to give a couple months to have both the mental health clinician and the RIPA data ready. So that's why we're putting it in October. So that is basic overview. Here's also a draft schedule. This can change, again, in lines with your recommendations and any other coordination. You'll see here for the work plan, I've put some main buckets of themes, starting with an introduction. We started that tonight. There's also the PD visit, the ride-alongs. Then there's a mental health section. I had that going from September to November. Next is data-driven best practices. This could go from December to February, possibly retreat in January, community events early next year, and then the bucket to look at youth and diverting youth from the criminal justice system. So again, this is not set in stone. This is totally open to change, to recommendations. Yeah, but I just kind of wanted to start to map out the rest of this year. And I know some of you might be eager, excuse me, to start making your recommendations and diving in. So hopefully this lays out a pathway to do so. That was all I had to present. I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback.
I just wanted to point out too that like these are just presentations. Like that doesn't stop the work. That doesn't start the work. You know, they're just presentations so that we're like well informed about South San Francisco's policies. I mean, especially when it comes to the policing. So again, I know people are eager. I know I am eager myself, but that doesn't stop the work just because, you know, let's say, you know, like the presentations on youth are coming in May. Like there's definitely data out there, right? We've heard that from the chief himself, that there is data out there. And I think the gardening center, they should probably have their data in September ready, right? Amy, was that right?
They're planning in September or possibly early October to release. I don't know how long it'll take to take a look at all of that. I don't know if that'll be already a digestible report, but yes, they're planning to have some data ready in September.
Right. And then do you know if there's data that's already ready though? Like even before they started the pilot program with mental health and police?
There is some data that the mental health clinician and the PD have been gathering.
Right. So just as an example, we can start getting the work like done. We can start getting that rolling. We don't have to wait for a presentation to happen to start asking questions or diving into what kind of what kind of data we need. Just wanted to put that out there.
Also, if you all are interested in forming subcommittees and wanted to start looking at things, that's an option.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Flores' presentation actually already kind of had it broken up if we were going to do subcommittees. I think she had broken that up really well. So if that's something that you want to start thinking about, so not one person is doing work on their own. I would hate for anybody to feel that they're doing the work of 7 people, but you know, that we could definitely get a team going and get everybody involved. So
I actually like the idea of subcommittees because that's where I kind of learn more about what's, you know, what I can do, more about being on the commission and where I can be effective.
I just wish to add that that whole idea, that whole thought about partnering with members of the council, I did discuss that with Councilperson James Coleman at the picnic a couple of weeks ago. And he did say that that is absolutely something they would be interested in. The council, I mean.
is that something that we would need to bring to the city council first? Is that something that they all have to vote on? Amy, do you know?
Not sure. I'd have to look into the processes. Maybe Sharon has thoughts.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Sharon. And I think Vice Chair Junio has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair Cancino. I believe it's known to all of us. We are one less commissioner, correct?
Yes.
And so what's not clear to me, are we going to backfill her position, her vacant position immediately, or are we just gonna continue? What is the 6 of us now?
Yeah, sorry. I think we missed discussing that in roll call, so I was going to bring it back up at the end. Unfortunately, one commissioner had to resign due to time constraints, Commissioner Nancy Garcia. She will be missed. We are working with the city clerk to appoint another commissioner to fill the vacancy.
Yeah, so, sorry we missed that. I did call Nancy and try to have a conversation with her. I think we're going to talk a little later to see how she could continue to support the commission when she can. So to be determined on that. Anything else for as far as like the work plan? Comments? Do we vote? Can we vote on whether we want to do subgroups or like maybe start getting the ball rolling on that? Amy, does that need a vote?
I'll defer to Sharon. I see she's off mute.
I don't think you need to take action on the idea of having subcommittees, but if you want to do appoint a specific subcommittee, then you would want to take a vote on that. But if you're there's consensus that yes, we think subcommittees are a good idea. I don't unless somebody wants to object to that. I don't think you need to take a vote on that.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Amy, is there any way that you could pull up Commissioner Flores's presentation? Because I definitely want to take a look at that again. Perfect. And definitely help me out here, everybody. What are we seeing here? We're definitely seeing data. Definitely looking, can you actually, oh wait, no, there it is. There's the subgroups that we were talking about. So develop a plan of action obtain, review relevant data, create draft report and recommendations. That's not necessarily what we're thinking, are we? I mean, it really seems like we need a subgroup on data, like data collection and research. What kind of subgroups are we thinking here?
I heard that one subgroup was mental illness.
Mental health?
Yes, mental illness. Yes, mental health.
Mm.
So I think the subgroups Amy had listed. Amy, can you side by side, put side by side your PDF on what you had presented with this one?
Were you thinking of the schedule? This one?
No, no,
Mm.
no, the one before that one. No, there.
There you go. Yeah.
So it said policing, complaints.
Sorry, I'm just trying to make side by side.
No worries. Yep.
I think those were just some of the potential subgroups. Certainly, we would be open to others that are perceived by the group.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know it appears that police and mental health are already a subgroup.
Right. And I mean that definitely has to be like a big focus. I mean, right now we have things divided up into like, you know, 6 things. There's only 6 of us already. So I think we definitely have to narrow this down into maybe 2 or 3 groups, right? I think 3 is the max somebody could be.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wonder if it makes sense if we do take, you know, like one topic, divide up our subgroups within that, because there is a lot here. I feel like the policing with mental health is definitely going to take a lot, and since that's, you know, encouraged from city manager, or at least from people, that's the direction that we should probably start focusing on. I think we should probably do the subgroups within that.
I agree.
Right. So
policing, yes.
Right. So maybe data, looking at policing and mental health, and then juvenile justice. I mean, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Is anybody else seeing anything else?
Well, it just really depends, because we certainly do not wish to spread ourselves too thinly. If data review is involved, we have no idea what data we're even looking at or reviewing. Are they pie charts? Are they raw data? Are they Excel spreadsheets? So I don't know, but I definitely think that within the policing, one bucket should be mental health data. What has been collected, what have been the retrospective data, and what has been collected to date, specifically the 52 cases that Mika has purportedly already reported on.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's going to be difficult to isolate mental health data versus just the regular data without having to, you know, go over all of it. Do you think that might be difficult, Commissioner Flores, to do?
Well,
and
that's why I just was implying that I have no idea what kind of data we're looking for.
Right.
So I do know that CITI, crisis intervention training, that's another bucket. So I would absolutely want to look at the policing and the crisis intervention training. And the CITI isn't really data, but rather training. And you and I spoke of this earlier, Crystal. We did not complete our conversation.
Right.
But I think crisis intervention training is something that is a separate bucket from the mental health data. review.
Right. Right. I mean, regardless though, I feel like all of these topics are gonna have data, right? Like, I mean, even if you're looking at CIT, if you're looking at mental health calls, if you're looking even just at, you know, traffic stops and what kind of people are being stopped, how many people are being, you know, what kind of people, how many people are being arrested and the demographics of all that is going to have data. So I really think we do need one subgroup specific on data. And I'm going to be really honest here. I feel like not all of, like, I know just for me personally, I am not very good at looking at data. I don't understand it. I get confused with it. And I would rather put that on somebody else who knows how to read data, knows how to ask the questions, especially the questions that you're asking, Commissioner Flores. I wouldn't even know how to look at data or even approach data or even knowing questions of how did they collect that data.
I understand, Crystal, and rest assured that I am a data nerd, so it's something that does not intimidate me. That has been my profession in clinical R&D.
Well, I would definitely like to nominate you as as lead for the data group, if that's okay, if that ends up being its own thing.
Unless someone else wants, then I'm happy to support you.
But I have sorry, 2 comments.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner Flores.
Whether or not lead a chair of a data commission, I'd like to participate. I just want to say that I work with policy data and police data a lot also, so I'm definitely very interested in that. And also in terms of, you know, we have questions about kind of what data we'll be looking at. I definitely have those questions as well, but I think if I'm not mistaken, I believe the chief during our first meeting mentioned that there was a new California police departments to construct more database consisting of incidents. I don't know if anybody remember or if I'm just misremembering
that. Commissioner Perez, I don't know if that's happening for everybody else, but your audio was going in and out. Is there any way that I've heard that sometimes if you turn off your camera, not that we don't want to see your face, but sometimes that can help with the connection.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, there. Yeah. Do you mind repeating that?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know where folks heard me last.
If you can start from the beginning, that'd be great. I definitely heard that you were volunteering to be on the data subgroup.
Sure. Yeah. I just wanted to say that I have experience looking at policy data and police data, so I'm definitely would be interested in being a part of that. But also, I know there were some questions about what data we might be looking at, or what data is even available. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think there was, I think the chief or some other representative from the police department said that they would be constructing a more comprehensive data set of police incidents. And I think that might have been in response to a recent state law requiring that of police departments. And so, yeah, unless I'm misremembering that, hopefully that'll be something that this commission will be involved in parsing through.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. Do you know what was that state, or was it a state, was it like an act or a law or ordinance? I don't really.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Just wanted to jump in for that question. So in my notes, I have that Chief Campbell has talked specifically about looking more at RIPA data and how the state will set guidelines for that. I'm not too familiar with RIPA data myself or what RIPA entails, but we can work on getting more information with the chief for that.
Perfect. Thank you, Mary Jo. That would definitely be helpful. All right, well, it sounds like we have 2 people on our data subgroup already. What's the max that we can have, Amy? 3?
Yeah, I think the quorum is still 4, so 3 people should be okay.
Okay. Does anybody else want to join data? I mean, even if we have 2 experts, I think that's better than 3 non-experts.
Sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Flores.
Yeah.
That was a joke.
You know, you know, if you haven't learned by now, you'll quickly learn. That's not my forte. So I'm gonna jump in the fire with the 2 commissioners, Commissioner Flores, and I think was it Commissioner Perez?
Mhm.
And I will if join the 2 of them and embark on that. I know for myself, speaking for myself, it'll be quite daunting, but I'm going to get out of my comfort zone and get in there and yeah, learn something new. So please include me with that subgroup.
Perfect. Thank you, Vice Chair Junio. Appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that. And good luck to you. I'm definitely interested in policing and mental health. Obviously, it's kind of where my bread and butter is. So I definitely want to be on that subgroup. Anybody from the commission also want to join that? And I think to be divided up into that and then juvenile justice, restorative justice. I don't know if maybe we can combine those 2.
Sure, yeah, you can set them up however you like. Yep.
Okay. I mean, I guess it could also be policing mental health and juvenile justice, and then restorative justice being its own thing. But I think restorative justice kind of needs to just be a constant in all of these, right? Like that's just something we also just need in the back of our heads constantly.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, I definitely like that. Yeah, I feel like there might not be as much to dive into on its own topic, but maybe just you could apply techniques to the other 3 topics. So I could see folding it in. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I think we have 2 other commissioners that haven't voiced their subgroup. We could talk about that next time. It would be nice to do it now, but I'm not going to put pressure on anybody if they don't want to choose anything. But
I was gonna say I'll join you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hobson and Cord. Wait, was that Hobson and Cord or was that Commissioner Sanders?
Sanders.
Even awesome. Thank you, Commissioner Sanders.
But I'll also join since you mentioned my name. I was going to say so.
Thank you, Hobson. Thank you, Commissioner Hobson and Cord. Okay, so it looks like we got 2 subgroups so far. I think maybe what we could do is we could throw in the policing juvenile justice in with the policing with mental health. Yeah, I think that works out really well.
Yeah, if I just quick check and see, I mean, I'm looking at this. I mean, we can form many groups. I think we're better off just kind of keeping it up higher. And then if need be at a later date, we can always break it down further. But I think for fear of getting overwhelmed, I'm hesitant to break it down too far at this point.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking my mind at this point. It just, yeah, kind of leave it at that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, this isn't something set in stone. And again, I don't want to be the only one talking about this. I want to make sure this is like a group thing. I mean, if anything, we can always change this. I think even just moving forward, at least until like the next month, maybe this is something that we can look at. We know commissioners are actually looking at it rather than it just kind of being at a standstill. Again, I know people are eager, so I want to make sure that there is work. I mean, there is work to be done. So, and it's always better to do work in groups. So, yeah, I don't think it needs to stay so set in stone or anything. I don't know. What does everybody else think?
Yeah, I agree with you.
So I'm
You can-
thinking out loud that since each subgroup has 3, there really is no way for us to say, for example, we wish to speak with Chairperson Consino. We could not do that, could we? Because that would be breaching the Brown Act. Is that,
Yes.
which means that the only way that we could continue this discussion would be through the monthly meeting.
Yes, I think it'd be best if the subcommittee would bring back their progress to the meeting.
Is there a way though that the subcommittee could also, get in contact with you, Amy, about things? I mean,
Definitely.
right? Yeah, I'm not trying to find like a way to work around the Brown Act or anything like that. But if there's, like something like whether it's like a question or, again, it's just making decisions, right, with the Brown Act.
Yeah, it's if a quorum of commissioners is discussing a topic, where 4 or more commissioners have discussed the same topic outside of a meeting. So it has to be 3 or fewer commissioners discussing the topic. And then in the meeting, everyone can comment.
Right.
So another suggestion to that would be that if each subgroup were comprised of 2, then we could have 3 subgroups. And we could still communicate with Chair Consino offline and not breach Brown Act. So that, because I'm just really concerned about having Chairperson Consino somewhat involved in these discussions, even offline discussions, where we would not be concerned about violation of Brown Act. Hence my suggestion of creating 2 people subgroups rather than 3.
Commissioner Flores, I really appreciate you wanting to include me in things, but I am no way an expert on my own in any of this. I don't want anybody thinking I am an expert in any of this, besides being very, very eager and having some experience in the field when it comes to police and mental health. I definitely want to make sure we can trust our other commissioners that they are also bringing their expertise and their opinions. So I don't want anybody to feel like they need to check in with me about anything.
It's not a check-in,
okay.
Chairperson Consino. I just think because with all due respect to your chairpersonship position, I think it's nice for you to know what your team is doing. You need not comment on it. I just think it's a heads up. If I contacted you, it would not be to ask for your expertise because none of us is an expert on equity. This is unprecedented. But with all due respect to your leadership, that is one, it's just, that's the main drive for my wanting you to know. Like in 25 words or less, here's what we've done, here's what we want you to know, and here's what we're going to be presenting at our next meeting.
Okay.
Not to commit you to anything.
I was like, oh, Commissioner Flores. Too much.
I do think that's a little problematic from a Brown Act standpoint, in that you're kind of creating a serial meeting in a way there. I mean, the purpose of subcommittees is y'all go off and do some work and then you come back to the full commission. You don't have a common thread running through it, because then the chair is communicating with these subgroups and it just gets messy. And the whole point of a subcommittee is, like, I'm repeating myself, but it's to go off and do work on your own, but then bring it back to the full commission. So I think that, and these subcommittees need staff support also. So that's a lot for one staff person to be keeping up with what all these subcommittees are doing. I think it's best if you come back together to report out from the subcommittee, as opposed to, and the chair will be informed at that time. you'll all be informed.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if anything, I think everybody, not that we need like big presentation or anything like that, but your findings or anything like that, I mean, that should all kind of be sent to Amy before our meeting. And, again, as chair and vice chair, we do sit down with Amy, but before the meetings to go over the agenda. So we do look at, the documents, the presentations that people have. And so I will be informed through Amy, but thank you, Sharon, for that insight. Good to know.
One other thing too is you can always form another subcommittee in the future. If you feel like you're ready to take on a new topic or transition out of a certain topic, another subcommittee could be formed.
Thank you, Amy. All right. It is 8:34, I think, on the agenda. Amy, do you mind pulling up the agenda, please? Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I think now that we have like a subcommittee, or two subcommittees, we could definitely get in contact with each other via email. And we could figure out like when's the next time that you guys could either meet Zoom or telephone or in person, whatever you guys want to do. But we should definitely move on to the next agenda item, with I think a lot of us also had interest in, which is a social gathering of commissioners. Is there anybody who doesn't want to do a social gathering?
If I may, I think with the two subcommittees, if I'm not mistaken, formed, the social gathering, I feel, could start with just the two subcommittees, and then eventually we can, work around where we're all together. But I think that's a good starting point, and I think it'd be easier for three commissioners to get together as opposed to six, or including staff. So that's just my suggestion, that we can start the social gathering within our subcommittee.
So are you proposing we do like a subcommittee gathering first and then schedule out a big commission gathering after, like sometime in the future, near future?
Are you trying to pin me down? Huh? Okay, yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah, because I would like to see my fellow commissioners face to face. I hope it's face to face as opposed to Zoom, and it could be over coffee, or, empanada, both. I think it'd be great. And then absolutely, in the very near future, I hope it's in a very near future, we can come together, even if it's just the commissioners, and then eventually staff and other stakeholders. The more the merrier, but I think we got to get that ball rolling. And I really believe it's just going to happen sooner and more quickly, and it'll be easier if we just start with our subcommittees.
Is everybody on board with that? Let's start with the subcommittees first, and then do a full commission one. And then with the subcommittees social gathering, I'm assuming staff can go to that as well, right?
Why would we want staff? Because then it would be like a formal meeting. No?
No, you certainly you can have staff at a social function, and it's wise, I think, because that way there's assurance that if there were a violation of the Brown Act, that staff would say, oh, we shouldn't really talk about that. It's not on the agenda. It's not agendized, or, you know, just kind of as a new body that's new to being many of you commissioners, I think makes sense that you would have typically, sure, whenever we have a social event with commissioners, staff would attend.
Oh, hello. Also wanted to pop in. I also staff the Youth Commission with another. She's now the management analyst for the city manager's office. But when the Youth Commission had their social gathering, I was part of the event to make sure that it could run smoothly. I was in charge of providing board games, since they wanted to provide or to play board games, as well as picking up the food and distributing the food. That way the commissioners could just focus more on getting to know each other rather than all the logistical background preparations. So just something to think about as well.
Also, I'll just say I would love to participate in community building. You know, I hope to support you all throughout this process, and would love to do that and get to know you all a little bit better as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely agree with all of our staff who are here. I think it's good for them to be there. Again, what I say is just an opinion, but definitely knowing the expertise of the city, what resources we have, what programs are here. I think it's definitely good to have them. I know I've learned a lot from Sharon, even from my previous commission, so I would love for them to be there.
I will second that. Not that a second is needed, but yes, 2 thumbs up on that idea. Please, yes.
Perfect. All right, so I think why don't we get like a what is that, like a Survey Monkey on some dates? Amy, can we do that? Send it out to the subcommittee so they could figure out like what are some dates they could get together. Unless you guys want to do that as a subcommittee, you know, staying in communication between you through on your own, but if you guys need Amy's help on that. Amy, is that okay? Is that something you can support?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll start email chains and can do a doodle or whatever is helpful.
Oh, that's what it is, doodle, not Survey Monkey. Thank you. Okay, cool, perfect. So I think we got a buy-in of that social gathering. All right, next line item, items from commission. And any commissioners have any
Yeah, I'll make it real quick. I know it's been a long meeting. July 19th, I took part in a presentation, I'll call it, Stop Stigma. It's an organization based out of Sacramento. So the subject was on mental illness, how to cope with it and how to help recognize it. It was very interesting. People gave account of their own experiences. But what I wanted to share is just their website, if anyone would be interested. So it's stopstigmasacramento.org. And so, yeah, just want to share that with the group, with my fellow commissioners.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hyun-Yo. Any other commissioners have any communications? All right, items from staff.
Yes, thank you. 2 quick things I'd like to mention. As Sharon has already brought up to you all, we would like to extend an invitation to the Police Academy if you're interested in getting a more in-depth look at what the police department does. I'll send you all an email about that. And then I would also love to meet with you all individually and just kind of get your feedback on how things are going, what you think. So look out for a couple emails from me.
Thank you, Amy. Sharon, anything?
I think Park and Rec is still with us. Just a invitation to the movie, which you guys already talked about on Friday. It's actually at Martin Ballfield. So we're trying to move it around town. The movie's not always in the same location. And it's Friday evening at dark over at the Martin Ball Field. Did I get that right, you guys?
Yeah, that's correct. It's at sunset. It's when the movie starts.
Yeah.
But as we alluded to earlier, there'll be a few activities before the movie begins. So if you want to come earlier for that.
Cool. Thank you, Sharon. I think Mary Jo, anything from you? Aaron, anything? All right.
Nope.
Oh,
Other staff covered it. Thank you, though.
okay, cool, perfect. All right, so I think that might be the end of our meeting until the next one. So definitely look out for the emails, especially for the socials. Yeah, all right, you guys have a great evening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.